Good afternoon. My name is Margiana Antunes. I'm the translation specialist for Partners Resource Network. We are a nonprofit agency that operates the Texas statewide network of parent training and information centers. The PTI projects known as PATH, PEN, and TEAM are funded by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs, OSEP. This provides training, education, information, referral, support, and individual technical assistance in obtaining appropriate services. Welcome to our Texas Autism Supplement Facebook series. This is 5 parts videos that we will be doing this week, throughout the week, each day, 12:15 in English and 1:15 in Spanish, and it will be available through our Facebook page. Do not worry if you miss any of these videos, because they will be posted later on in our Facebook page, and also the content, meaning a link for our presentation. With me today, there's Christina Henning. She is our Director of Statewide Services for PRN, and she will be assisting me on the slide transitions and any technical problems that we might encounter. Christina, we are able to move to the first one. All right, so throughout the week, we will be completing our objectives, and our objectives will be to provide an overview of the autism national rates, to understand what is included in the Autism Supplement and how to have access to these strategies included in the supplement, and also to provide an overview of each of those strategies. Next. All right, so first and foremost, ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorders in 2018. Based on the statistics from the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, 1 in 59 children are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders in the country. Most of these children, unfortunately, are diagnosed after the age of 4, even though we all know that autism can be diagnosed with reliability as early as the age of 2, and in some cases even before that. I know that there are some instruments and there's some technology out there that you can get a reliable diagnosis before that. But let's just take the age of 2, because it will provide us with enough time for us to intervene quickly and to make sure that we are expecting the better outcomes for all the kids that are diagnosed with autism. Christina, we're going to click on the CDC to take a look at these facts and figures. I would like to show you the Autism Speaks website, particularly this page, the facts and figures, because they do a breakdown of the CDC statistics. And again, 1 in 37 children determined with autism are boys, and 1 in 151 are girls. So again, the prevalence in boys is higher than the one in girls. And another information is important to say is that 31% of children with ASD have intellectual disability, but it's still the majority of the children within ASD have higher IQ or average intellectual IQ. And well, autism affects all ethnic and socioeconomic groups. And then minority groups tend to be diagnosed later and less often. And this is just, frankly, unacceptable. And early intervention affords the best opportunity to support healthy development and deliver benefits across the lifespan. Again, if we continue to diagnose so late, after the age of 4, between the age of 4 and age of 6, and then we do so even less quickly within minorities, then obviously these benefits of supporting a healthy development and deliver benefits across the lifespans are going to be reduced dramatically. Christina, she's showing us the graphics. When my son was born, 2005, I remember clearly that we were talking about autism is 1 in 168, 166. And we'll take a look at the Autism Speaks rates Right now, we are, at least last year, until last year, because they do this every 2 years, 1 in 59 kids are diagnosed with autism. If we go back, before that, they have data until 2004, when it was 1 in 168. So there has been an increase in detection or in kids that are being found to have autism spectrum disorders, or yes, or with autism in the country. Why is this figure in fact important? Well, because these kids will require early intervention. These kids will require school services, special education. These kids will require additional services, supplementary aids and supports. And it's important to know that there are even more kids out there that they do require these services promptly. And we know that many families, even today, 2018, 2019, one of the things that most families can tell you is that the access to services is still difficult. There are still long waits for first evaluations, even medical evaluations, and then for them to access services at school. That's another deal. But there are still delays that we need to do something about it, especially now that we are celebrating the Autism Awareness Month this week and the rest of the weeks for the month of April. I would like to say that awareness, as many others organizations throughout the country have said it before, awareness is not enough. We need to be active in seeking acceptance, seeking support, and seeking respect and inclusion for all the kids that eventually will not be kids anymore, but they will be part of our society. We need to do more than just awareness or reach out for awareness. Awareness is a good starting point. Christina, we can go back. All right, so autism and special education in Texas, all that is concerning to the Autism Supplement can be traced back or is included in the Texas Administrative Code, Commissioner Rules Concerning Special Education Services, Section 89.1055. If you would like to read each one of those, these are 11 strategies, 11 points. You're going to find them in the section 89.1055, letter E. And I just want to point out that looking at the statistics in the 2000, students with autism that received special education services in Texas school surmount to 1.45% of those in the public education receiving special education services and related services. And that same figure, 1.45%, reach out to 11.4% in 2014, 2015, from the ages of 3 to 21. Remember that here, students with autism or any other disability can have access to special education services from the age of 3, transitioning from probably ECI, or if they are not in ECI, then they can start as early as the age of 3. Next one, Christina. Oh yes, we're gonna take a look at the Commissioner Rules. So we want to show you where to find those. So we go to the section 89.1055. We look at letter E, and then in the letter E after that, they're going to be enumerating each of the strategies. And we have PERS, with extending educational programming, which we'll be covering tomorrow. Daily schedules, that's number 2. We also will be covering that tomorrow. Then we have positive behavior supports, and we have in-home training. I just keep that. In-home training and community-based training. Then, so on and so forth. We have future planning, number 5. We will be covering future planning tomorrow. And parenting and family training and supports. We have number 7, staff to student ratio. Number 8, communication interventions. Number 9, social skills supports and strategies. Number 10, professional educator and staff support, very important, as well as training. And number 11, the last one, teaching strategies based on peer review and research-based practices. We are going throughout the entire week, we're going to look at these strategies briefly. I have decided to combine some of those. They're not the same, but most of these strategies complement each other. And the way that we break those down in English and in Spanish the same way, but we're going to break those down in the way that they have something in common. So tomorrow and the following days of this week, please watch our videos and listen to all the information in regards to each one of those strategies. The Texas Autism Supplement, it's a document for those that have never seen it because they're new to the special education system, or they're new to Texas. This is a document that you can find in your art paperwork or your IEP paperwork. If you never had art paperwork because you're about to go to your first art meeting or IEP meeting, or you had your first meeting but you don't know what am I talking about, this is, I encourage you to go search for these papers. If you don't have a copy, then you can go ahead and request a copy throughout maybe the diagnostician at your school or your child's coordinator, case manager. Once you have this copy, try to go to the last part of it. There are going to be plenty of pages, but go to the last part of it, and then you'll see about 2 to 3 pages insert that is called Autism Supplement. In that Autism Supplement, they will enlist all the strategies from 1 to 11, and they will briefly explain what each strategy is about. And they will have an empty space right after that explanation, or maybe in your district the page looks differently. Christina wants to go and show us. When do you see this? When we publish this document in our Facebook page, you will be able to copy this, to save it, and to be able to click the same links that we're clicking right now and be able to see what we're seeing. So this is an example. This is from region 18. This is an example of how a supplement for students with autism or other pervasive developmental disorders will look like in your art or IEP paperwork. So you see that they are enlisting each strategies, and right next to it, they enlist the legal frame for that, where you can find it. And then there's a very short explanation what that means. And then below that, there is an empty space. Now, that's not there to have a space from the next one. That it's in there because every time in our committee deliberates about the Autism Supplement, which should happen every time you have an art meeting, especially when some needs are urgent or more necessary or they need to be looked at, then the art committee must include a declaration, must include a statement in which it says or justifies or validate which strategy has been choose to be used and why. Obviously, to do that, the art committee must take a look at the data, must take a look at the student progress, must take a look at the student needs, current needs, which for that, you go back to the PLAF, which is also part of your art and IEP paperwork. And then once we take a look at all this data, and once we take a look at all the needs, and we take a look at maybe teachers' observations or maybe other professionals or staff participating in your child's education observations and what the recommendations are, we'll take a look and we discuss which strategies can be used and why these ones have to be used. And that statement should be included, as requested by law, should be included in this particular document that we call the Texas Autism Supplement. Christina, let's go back. As I was saying, the Texas Autism Supplement, it is a document. It only exists here in Texas, as far as we know. And this document is also a process, because as I was explaining, it requires the progress monitoring of the student and the progress monitoring of the needs of the student and how the student is faring if we compare the student with, other peers, the same class, the same grade, same age, and also compare the students to his or her own IEP goals. So if the student is not making progress, if the student is making progress, but the skills are not generalized, if the student is showing new needs, then we need to take a look, and we need to make sure that if we have not included the goals to address these new needs or old needs, that they're not having or making progress or enough progress or sufficient progress for the student to be successful, then we need to make sure that we reach out to the strategists in the Autism Supplement to do so. There are 11 services. They were not always 11 services, but they are right now 11 services, which are the services or the strategies that we just read before when we reach out to the Autism Supplement in the commission rules. And these ones, it is stated in federal guidelines that due to the intensity of this disorder, the autism spectrum disorders and other developmental disorders as PDD and OS, is the obligation of the school district to address, consider, and justify why each of these services is or is not needed, like I just explained. Christina, let's move on to the next one. All right, so where does this Texas Supplement background comes from? In the 1980s, the Texas legislature directed TA to create a focus group with parents or to address parents' concern, because parents at that time, they were expressing that the needs, the children's needs, children with autism spectrum disorders, were not addressed through the IEP or through the the regular school day. So as a result of that, they created the Autism Supplement, which came to be known later on as the Texas Autism Supplement, because again, it was 2 or 3 pages included at the very end. It was a different page. The schools have to come up with a different form to make sure that they were addressing these needs, to make sure that they were going over these other areas that maybe were not covered throughout within the IEP goals. So that's why it's called a supplement. In addition to, in the 1990s, the supplement received some revision, but it wasn't until 2007 when the supplement was reviewed again and changes were made. It was added, 4 new strategies were added to the Autism Supplement, so making up to 11. So from 7 we moved to 11 strategies, and these strategies are covering many of the critical autism needs. And we're gonna take a look at that. Christina, let's move on to the next page. Well, I'm sure that, like me and like many parents like me, which children has autism, or maybe you're a grandfather, you're an aunt or uncle, or a friend, or a neighbor that you want to contribute, or that you are concerned about a child close to you, that you love, a child that you respect, a child that it's the child of somebody that you appreciate, that they have autism, and that you want to learn more. Well, autism is characterized by several areas: the deficits in communication, the deficits in social skills and reciprocity, emotional development, and the deficits on cognitive functions. And but there are other needs related to that, not just the ones that are listed on the DSM-5, but verbal and nonverbal communication, social impairment, behavior, sensory. They're hyper or hypersensitive to many things: light, sounds, crowds, etc., and the cognitive function. But as I mentioned before, we are, with our current data, 2018, from the CDC, we are able to say that even though in the past autism was usually linked to intellectual disabilities, we know that the majority of our population, the majority of the students with autism spectrum disorder, they have an average or above average intelligence, meaning that the problem is not for our kids, the majority of our kids, to learn or to make progress, which also the kids that does not have an average or above average IQ can do. They can do. It's just that all their skills teach to all our kids, no matter the range in which they are found, high function, low function, no matter the range. All these kids that I just mentioned before, the skills that we are listing here must be addressed. Some of these areas are still, like if you ask me, the sensory area is not necessarily fully addressed in the schools. It's sometimes we can have the fortune to come with great occupational therapists, and then we can develop an OT or a motor lab for our kids, and maybe we can find certain accommodations to help them to cope with the sensory overload, but it's not the case. But in the areas of social and the areas of behavior and communication, the Autism Supplement does a great job in addressing those particular areas. And there are several strategies in there that, even though they're different, they address these areas directly, and not only for the student, but also for the families, the parents, and also the teacher and the staff that are working directly with our kids. Christina, can we move to the next one? All right, so what are the main ideas about these 11 strategies? Well, first of all, that the R committee must discuss them all and must identify and validate and make a determination which ones are going to be used and why, or why not. Then it is required documentation. So you will learn, if you haven't yet, that every time you go to your R committee and we sit down and we say, okay, well, so-and-so is in need of additional strategies to address social skills, or additional strategies to address, let's say, communication, because the student is not able to produce sounds, or is not able to communicate all the time, or maybe to address behavior, because we need to make sure that the student learn appropriate behaviors or replacement behaviors to change what is happening right now. Then all of these strategies that we decide to consider and then to determine whether they are going to be used or not are based on progress monitoring, are based on data, are based on current needs. So if your PLAF, the PLAF for your child, does not reflect these needs that you would like to address in the Autism Supplement in their next R meeting, IEP meeting, well, you know now that you need to go back and reach out and say, I don't feel that my child's PLAF reflects all the needs that need to be there to justify that some strategies might be used. And on the other hand, maybe the needs are there, but the strategies that are used in the through the IEP goals are not enough. So we need to put some more in place or do something additional. Supplement the strategies or the interventions with something else. And for that, most of the times, they're going to request, so you will need to request for additional testing, additional evaluations. So we have evaluations for communication, we have evaluations for assistive technology to use in communication, we have evaluations for social skills, we have evaluations for future planning, we have plenty of other evaluations or assessments or observations or many other ways to gather data to justify or to determine the needs specifically, and then to justify the use of certain set of strategies or a combination of strategies. And most of the time, all the time, these evaluations must be done by personnel or staff, professional staff, that they're qualified to do these evaluations, and that they have experience in the field of autism. Now, if we see in my presentation, when you get access to this, you can click on the strategies. If you don't recall which are those, you click on where it says the strategies, we have the link there, and then we'll show you again, and we'll take you back again to the commissioner rules, so you remember which strategies these are. And finally, the consideration of these strategies does not imply or that the R committee is going to tell you, oh yes, we're going to go ahead and do it, or that the art committee will conclude that these are needed. For instance, you see that your child regressed during the winter break, meaning that when he is in the winter break, we're great at home, we have fun at home, but then when we go back to school in January, the progress that we had before, we don't see it anymore. It's like it's starting over. Is the skills that we're emerging, or the skills that we're being showing, little by little, they're no longer there. So obviously you're thinking that my child will need extended education services or ESY, or maybe extended educational programming, meaning that maybe my child will need to come earlier at school or to stay after school to regain some of the skills that were lost during the break. Well, that is not going to be determined because you're saying that happened. Data has to be gathered in order for the art committee to show that there is a need, to reflect the need in the paperwork, and also to validate and to justify the use of any of these strategies, not just for the extended education services, for any other strategy. Christina, we can go to the next one. All right, so that was the end of the review, the introduction to the Texas Autism Supplement. Remember, this week we're going to be talking about the Autism Supplement strategies, and we have divided those per day because there are several strategies. So tomorrow we'll be talking about strategies 1, 2, and 5. We mentioned before, strategy 1 is extended educational programming. Strategy 2 is daily schedules, and strategy 5 is future planning. The first two are very complement each other. Strategy 5 does not have much to do with strategy 1 and 2, but as I said, we're breaking all this down because there are many strategies to go and talk about. Our information, this video, if you missed it, do not worry. Again, it's going to be posted in a Facebook page, as well as the link to access to the PowerPoint that we just used. So if you want to check some of the content that we have. If you have any questions, these sessions are going to be all of them pre-recorded, but we're going to be live answering questions. So whenever this video is live, or any of the videos throughout the week are live, we're going to be there waiting to see if we get any questions. Some of the questions, so if you have questions right now or the following days, do not hesitate to post them in the comment box, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. We have our link over there at the bottom, the Facebook page, if you don't know how to access to our Facebook page. And statewide webinars, where there are several statewide webinars coming up. On April 16th, we're going to have legal options when the art committee or the art meeting was not enough to resolve what we would like to resolve as far as the education programming for our kids. And we're going to be doing that in collaboration with Disability Rights. Colleen Elby will be our presenter for that day. She's an amazing presenter. In April the 22nd, we're going to have another very interesting presentation. It's a mother and daughter journey with autism. I do recommend truly to join us that day because this particular mother and daughter have a special relationship, and also our presenter, she also works for the public school system, and she will be sharing with us her experiences, how to access services for her daughter. And then finally on April 30th, we're going to have our webinar, collaborative webinar with the TEA, the Texas Education Agency, about ESY services, extended education, extended school year services. So if you would like to learn about any of these topics, or if you have any other questions, we usually talk about one topic, but that leads us to many others. And more importantly, you will have to have access to all these amazing presenters that they have plenty of information and experience in regards to the special education system, not just for autism, but in general. So I do invite you to participate and to post all your questions. Maybe Your questions are very specific, but I do recommend that you reach out to us, and Christina's going to show our contact information. That's my name again, Margiana Antunes. That's our phone number and our email address. We will be able, if you have a very particular situation, to reach out and put you in contact with our regional coordinators. And the closest that they are within your residential area, their area where you live, and they will reach out to you, and you will have a chance to discuss your specific case with them, and they can provide you with plenty of resources if they don't have the immediate answer, or maybe they can serve you as a mediator, or not as a mediator, but as a link to reach out to your school district, or to reach out to other professionals for you to find more help for your child. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.